Hi everybody, I am Jane. Pink Lady have asked me to do some new Pink Lady core at home videos. So these videos are a way of me sharing with you ideas of how you can stay strong, supple, fit and healthy if you've been finding yourself sitting a lot more recently. So I think we all have. Now today's workout is a workout that really strengthens and stretches all around the hip area. So we're going to be really working the glutes, the out hips and the front of the hips. The glutes are a tricky muscle group. Sometimes they don't like to work when we ask them to. So if we're tight with the front of the hip can inhibit us from working the back of the hip. So we're going to start with some release work there first. So for your release work, we're just going to simply go into a kneeling lunge position. So stepping one leg forward to the other. And in this position, just check that your front knee is over your ankle and your hips are square to the wall in front of you, and just hands resting on your thigh. You're going to allow that front knee to track more forwards over your toes and just allow that back hip to sink closer to the floor here, squeezing through that back glute, so we're really stretching through the front of that hip. And then from here I want you to push back through your front leg and just allow your hips to travel backwards in a straight line. So now I'm taking that stretch to the hamstrings and trying to keep my back as straight as I can. So this is a dynamic stretch for the hip flexors and it's a dynamic stretch for those hamstrings. So I'm just alternating between the two, still trying to keep my spine nice and straight as I do this. And then just one more, seeing if I can get the hip a little closer to the floor on this last one. And then my hips a little closer to my heels. And then easing out to change legs. So check in with that alignment, nice square hips, nice long spine. Make sure you know where your knee is and in line with the second and third toes. So allow that front knee to travel forwards, but work on trying to really open up through the front of that back hip. Pushing through your foot, you can allow yourself to rock onto your heel here. Now it doesn't matter guys that when you push back, if you're not fully able to straighten your leg, that's absolutely fine. It's the direction you're moving in that matters. So just by sending your hips backwards towards your heels, you're going to find a deeper stretch through the back of your thigh, your hamstrings. So really trying to get those hips closer each time. We're not forcing the stretch, we're inviting it. And then last one. Hips sink, 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 squeeze that back glute and then stretch through those hamstrings. So coming onto your mat now, so swivel your legs out in front of you and then just hold your legs, use your abdominals to roll down and let's just assess the spine. So check that the heels are in line with the sit bones. Your pelvis is in neutral, so there's 3 bones at the front of the pelvis, your 2 pelvic bones, your pubic bone are level. If we make that triangle shape with the hands, that triangle is square to the ceiling. Your rib cage wants to be contacting the mat. Eye gaze forwards at the ceiling in front of you. And just put your hands on your ribs and just focus on breathing deep and full into the back, into the sides of the ribs. So really trying to feel how the back ribs expand backwards into the mat, the side ribs move out to the side walls, and then the narrowing of the rib cage on your out breath. Now really make that inhale big, so the bigger the in-breath, the bigger the out-breath, and it's that forceful exhalation that really engages those deep abdominals. So when we breathe out, we naturally draw the navel into the spine, which is the action that engages the deep abdominals. So on that next out-breath, I want you to ask yourself to find that navel to spine connection and then maintain that on your in-breath. That's it, so that's why we have to keep our breath in our ribs above the belly button so that we can keep that navel to spine connection. And then just let your arms rest. Stay with your breath. You're going to bring your feet and knees together, using your in-breath to rotate your pelvis and legs to one side. Out-breath brings you back to the centre and then changing sides. Now I've given you the breathing pattern that facilitates movement, but you can choose one that works for you. So your range of motion should be as big or as small as the opposite shoulder blade stays down on the mat. And as you twist, you try to minimise the sliding of the feet and the knees here. So we're doing this exercise to really stretch through the sides of the body. So as I rotate to one side, all muscles down the side that I'm rotating away from, including the side hip muscles, I'm getting a nice stretch. So I like to use this for a little bit of stretch through the IT bands. I'm just warming up for a deeper stretch through the IT band. So the IT band is a band of connective tissue that runs from the outside of the hip to the outside of the knee. If it gets tight, it can aggravate or change joint alignment a little bit. So that changes the way we use our bodies, we use our hip and leg muscles. So nice mobility through the sides of the hips now. And then from here, I want to create what I call a figure of four position. So ankle goes on the thigh, and you're going to flex the foot that belongs to that ankle, opening the knee and making sure that the two sides of the waist are equally long. And we're going to continue with that rotation. So opening that top knee up to the ceiling and trying to stamp the sole of the foot onto the floor, and then just going to the other side. And when I go to the other side, I'm using that top foot to pull that knee close to the floor. So I get a deeper stretch. And again, making sure that you're still maintaining abdominal control. So abdominals are always pulling backwards in the direction of the mat. So just one more here. And making sure that as I'm doing this, I'm thinking of my breath, that coordination of breath and movement. So changing sides. So ankle goes on the thigh, flex the foot to protect the knee, feeling that the two waists are long here, and see if you can get the sole of the foot close to the floor. Now, if you're like me, you might find that one side, that's really achievable, you can get the sole of the foot down, but on the other side, it might be a little tighter, you might find that's not as doable. So again, we're not judging our bodies, we're just here to check in with them, increase blood flow to muscles, mobilise joints, just do something good for ourselves. So that's all we're here for. So don't make any judgments, just let the movement happen and we'll get stronger and more flexible for it. So this is your last one. And then when you come back to the centre, uncross, so heels are in line with the sit bones, and we're going to do a great exercise for the glutes. We're going to do our bridge. So you're going to rock your pelvis back, so tipping that triangle to the chest, peel the spine away, lift up through the hips, and then slowly roll down one bone by one. So back of the chest, back of the ribs, back of the waist, pelvis. Chin always nodding down to the chest, so we're not allowing that head and neck to tip back as we lift up onto the shoulders. As you roll down, keep tipping your triangle to your chest as long as you can. So you're reinforcing the work the abdominals have to do to articulate the spine vertebra by vertebra. So this is a really great way of warming up through the backs of the legs, the buttocks, stretching through the front of the hips. We're going to do the neutral version of the bridge now. So instead of tipping your triangle to your chest, keep the pelvis in neutral, push down into your feet to lift your hips, and then slowly reverse that. So as you lower, think of tipping your triangle slightly towards your feet. So it's a sensation of sticking your bottom out and leading with your tailbone to lower. So ideally on that lowering phase, pelvis and ribs should find the mat at the same time. If you find that your ribs find the mat at the same time, so if your ribs find the mat before your pelvis, you might be using that roll down option instead of the bending at the hips option. So the difference between the two variations, both variations we're initiating from the pelvis, but the articulated variation where you're rolling up and rolling down, you're driving from your abdominals. When we keep the neutral position, we're driving from the hip extensors, so glutes and hamstrings. So you should feel that how you do what you do dictates which muscles you feel the most, really feeling the backs of the legs here and the bottom. So you're going to lift up and stay up. Now I'm only going halfway up, so I'm not going to my full range where I could lift up and really find some stretch here. I'm going to be about halfway. And all you need to do is tip your triangle to your chest and then release. So draw your pubic bone up to your belly button and release. Feel that you're really curling your glutes underneath you, really shortening through the lower abdominals here. So when we tip that pelvis backwards, we not only activate the abdominals, but we also get more glute activation. So we're having to use our glutes to assist with that pelvic tilt and keep the height of the hips here. So we should be feeling some heat build up into the bottom. Now I want you to keep that pelvic tilt, and then you're going to bring one knee up, take that foot down and change sides. So when we lift that leg up, we're increasing that weight that's going through the muscles and the bones, and that's going to challenge your abdominals to keep that pelvis tipped backwards, so to keep your triangle tipped to your chest. And it's also going to challenge that supporting leg. So you've got to focus on pushing that foot downwards into the floor at the same time as tipping your triangle to your chest. So we call that lumbo-pelvic stability, so that we're really working through the hips and the abdominals to stabilise the lower spine, the pelvis and the lower spine. Last one, and then check if you've got anything to release. So if you didn't have anything to release, you might have lost that pelvic tilt. So hopefully you had that position and then you're able to release to neutral. So let's keep the neutral position. Lift one leg to tabletop, making sure the pelvis is level, and then just lift up, lower down, lift up, lower down. So really pushing the foot downwards to get your lift upwards. So by pushing the foot down, we create ground reaction force. That helps you connect into your hip extensors. And when you push downwards, we get a lift upwards in return. So we want to make sure that we're not starting to lift up through the rib cage, because that would be a lot of back activation. Now hold that lift, and we're going to pulse for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lower. Put that foot down. We're going to do it on the other side. So lots of work through those glutes. So foot down, hips up. Now feel that you're dragging your heel backwards towards your pelvis. So I'm not just pushing my heel down, I'm dragging it backwards. It's important that your big toe is staying anchored on the floor here, because when we anchor the big toe, it really connects into your midline. So it helps you engage the inner thighs, and the inner thighs also play a really important role in stabilising the pelvis. We're going to hold that lift, and then we're going to pulse for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Okay, so coming onto your side. So find a straight line from fingertips to toes. So always check that you can see your feet, so you know that your legs aren't behind you. That could arch your back right from the get-go. Fingertips slightly down on the floor for stability. And I just want you to make sure that your two pelvic bones are stacked here. It's a sensation of lifting your bottom waist a little away from the floor. Bend your top knee forwards and try and get the sole of the foot flat on the mat. Now if that isn't available to you, you've got the option of bringing the knee down, but that can pull the pelvis forwards. So if that pelvic bone is rolling forwards, put a cushion underneath your knee. And then flex your bottom foot, and you're going to lift that leg up and lower that leg down. So really working into the inner thigh. You're checking that when that leg goes up, your bottom waist stays lifted up. So we're not sinking down, so we're using the abdominals to stabilise the pelvis and the spine, and the lift of the leg wants to come from the upper inner thigh, where the leg meets the pelvis. So really trying to get some good work there, and then lift and hold, and we're going to do circles here. So keep reaching the leg away from you, keeping the height of the leg, and then change direction for 8 circles. So we're using the inner thighs here, we're using the glutes here, but the intensity is definitely in the inner thighs, lengthening through the outer thigh, and then release. Stack the top leg over the bottom leg, keeping that pelvis stable. Now you're going to rotate your top leg out in the hip and then back to parallel. Try and feel that the movement's coming from the top of the leg. So the thigh bone is turning out in the hip socket, and that's the reason why the knee and the toes turn to face the ceiling. So really think of what's going on in that socket joint, your femur externally rotating, and then that activates your side glutes and your deep glutes. Now we're going to keep that external rotation, and then you're going to slide your top heel along your bottom leg so your knee points up to the ceiling, and see how much you can slide how close you can get your foot towards your hips and then slide that leg away. So we're trying to keep the leg turned out from the hip here, and that takes strength through the side glutes and the deep glutes. These are the muscles that help stabilise the hips and knees, prevent the knees from rolling in. We're trying to keep that top pelvic bone stacked over your bottom pelvic bone. We're going to add, so you're going to slide in, lift the knee up, foot goes down and slide out. So we're going to do 3 more like this. So all the time I'm challenging myself to keep my pelvis stable. I'm going to lift up, lower down, and then parallel the leg. We're going to lift up and then do small circles. So we want to make sure that the leg is in a nice parallel position. I'm focusing on the up bit of the circle and the back bit of the circle, trying to keep my body as still as possible, and then changing sides. So really focusing on the glutes, pulling backwards and breathing in for one half of the circle, breathing out for the other half of the circle. And then when you've done rep number 8, you lower the legs down and just give those hips a rub. So let's do that on the other side. So swivel around and then find that straight line. So checking you can see your toes, pelvis stacked, so we don't want gravity to be sinking the ribs down, and then bend that top leg in, fingertips lightly down, flex that bottom foot and lift that leg up. Okay, so this is why we stretch the outer thigh at the beginning of our workout, because if the outer thigh, if the IT band is tight or the outer thigh muscles are tight, it can inhibit you using your inner thigh muscles to pick that leg up off the floor. Okay, so by lifting that leg up, we're activating the inner thigh and we're lengthening the outer thigh muscles. So really find that nice length, hold that lift, and then we're going to go for circles. Keep trying to push that leg away from you, reaching out for the heel, pulling the foot up from the ankle, changing direction for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Stack those legs. So those legs are stacked. And spine is long, and you're going to rotate the leg out back to neutral. So just creating some mobility in the hip here. So letting that femur corkscrew outwards in the hip socket and then back to its neutral position into parallel again, making sure we're still thinking of that alignment through the torso. So if we're keeping that stability through the pelvis and that length in the spine, this is an abdominal exercise as well as a hip and a leg exercise. Now we're going to do our devil play preparation. So top foot slides up that bottom leg and then slides down. The challenge here is to make sure that the pelvis stays still. So we're really isolating the movement to the hip and the leg, and you're having to really work hard in those deep glutes and side glutes to turn that leg out from the hip here. Okay, so your knee, if you're quite tight in your hip flexors, you might be more here, and that doesn't matter. The benefits are always in the trying. We're going to lift up. Now when we lift the knee, we're activating through the lateral hip flexors as well as those side glutes. So really working more of those lateral hip muscles now. Okay, the last one. And then we're going to go back to parallel, lift the leg up, and then circles. So again, making sure the body is stable. If you need the option, you can bend that bottom leg for more stability. It's more challenge when that bottom leg is straight. It's really challenging your balance, especially when the leg reaches behind you. Changing direction. I'm keeping my circles really small and working on keeping my body as stable as I can. Okay, we're going to do 3 and 2 and 1 and release, and then just give those hips a rub. Okay, and then coming onto the belly. Okay, so in this position we're going to do swimming legs. We've already, if you've watched any of the other videos, we've done swimming legs in a previous workout. So we should know where we're going with it a little bit more now. So shoulders lengthening away from the ears. Lengthen your legs out of your hip sockets.
And then from here, you're going to lift one leg up, lower the leg down, and then change sides. So the easy bit is lifting your leg up. The hard bit is making sure that when that lift happens, your lower back does not sink down into the floor. So the higher you lift the leg, the more control it takes in the abs to stabilise through that lower back. So keep reinforcing, drawing that pubic bone up to your belly button when that lift happens. So from here, guys, we're going to lift both of the legs up and then lower the legs down. That's it. So this is a little bit more challenging now. If you're tight through the front of the hip is going to inhibit you from using the back of your hip. So you've got to watch that you're not doing that. So we don't want to be bending the knees to lift the feet. We want to really stretch those legs back and make sure that the feet lift off the floor from the hips here. So we're going to keep those legs lifted, turn the legs out like we're practicing that développé, and we're going to start doing heel beats. Now focus on pushing the legs away, squeezing those glutes. This is really small, and I want you to breathe in for a count of 5 and breathe out for a count of 5. So breathing in 2, 3, 4, 5, out 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to add some ankle mobility into this. So you're going to flex your feet for 5 beats and then point your feet for 5 beats. Timing that breath with the beats all the time. That's it, really quick beats here. Try and keep the tension out of your shoulders. Try and keep the tension out of that lower back. So abdominals and glutes, strong connection through the inner thighs. Really working the ankle joint, and then release. And then hands under the shoulders and just stretch through those hips. And we're just going to finish off with a glute stretch. So we did the figure of 4 stretch earlier when you were laying on your back. So we're going to do a figure of 4 stretch here. So ankle on the thigh, flex your foot, put your hands quite close to your bottom, and then shoulders roll back, pick your hips up and travel your hips towards your heels. See if you can get your hips a little closer to that foot. Knee opening out, chest lifting up, really stretching through that bottom. And then let's change sides. So legs out, ankle on the thigh, slide that bottom leg in, flex that top foot, shoulders back, pick the hips up, travel the hips forwards, lower them down. So make sure you're lifting that chest. If we're slumping, the stretch is not going to be as effective. So keep stretching that spine up, opening that knee away from you, pushing through that heel, protecting that knee. Well done, guys. I hope you felt the burn in your bottom, and we worked all around the hips, so inner thighs, outer thighs and glutes, and these muscles will help you stay taller. So thank you very much. See you for now.